It is a money laundering machine.
Only you cut out again.
What it's been. I always cut out when I get angriest.
And now you're back.
There's a little anger meter on my screen, and it just frizzes.
Yeah. Is it like one of those like DUI things? You got to blow into it, and then so if you blow too much anger, then it throttles the Wi-Fi. Is that what happens?
Yep.
But you were saying about the $11 a day, which
yeah. And I was just, the conclusion of that is that meanwhile they funneled, of course, trillions to Wall Street in the first stimulus bill. More go to these programs in the second one, and that's why these people are there. That's why these politicians got into this for the most part. It's why it's why this machine exists. It's a giant money laundering machine. Is really what it is.
Oh, it's unbelievable, and the fact that we have to fight. I mean, $1,200 was a slap in the face back in April, right? That was like, what? $1,200? That's the best you're going to give us? So then they come back with half of that. So it's half of a shitty deal. And then now there has to be this big fight over $2,000, which, yeah, $2,000 is better than $600. I'm sure it can help a lot of people. But again, it's nothing. It's $11 a day, especially when you talk about the people who probably are anywhere from 3 to 9 months behind on rent or mortgage. Like, so I mean, and you have to just, like, I know some people, like, I just called my mortgage company and said, look, you got to just put a freeze on my mortgage. And some of the mortgage companies said, okay, but just individuals have to kind of fight and claw to make these deals. And then you're talking about, of course, in this stimulus bill, there's not rent, there needs to be rent forgiveness. No, we're just going to push the stay of execution 30 days. So instead of getting evicted,
right.
This coming Saturday or whatever, you're going to get evicted, in a month.
Right, if someone couldn't pay their rent at the beginning of the thing, what are the odds they're then able to pay, 8 months, 9 months of back rent all at once? Like,
grand? I mean,
it's crazy.
It's like, so if they're not going to just pay people's rent, and just, again, that $4.25 trillion they gave Wall Street, that should have just gone to pay everybody's rent, which would make the landlords whole and everybody else. Or like you say, we shouldn't be getting $2,000 right now. We should be getting $5,000 to $6,000. Like there, that could maybe knock down some of the rent, but instead it's like $2,000 at best.
Well, and another way you could do this, what some countries have, like Denmark, is you say to corporations, we will, basically bail you out, help you get through this, as long as the money is going to keep all of your employees on.
Right.
So basically pay your employees, and we will give you the money to do it. Instead, they, like with the airlines, they started to do that. They said, keep your employees on and we'll give you the money as long as you keep them till October. So then October comes around and most of those, some of the airlines fired like half their employees or whatever. So it was like, it lasted for a few months.
Oh, there's a bunch of examples of companies that got money from the government and still laid people off because we have no regulatory anything. We have nothing. We just give companies, big companies and banks and Wall Street and corporations, we give them whatever they want, and then they're never held accountable. And it's preposterous. I mean, and you've got, what is it? What was the number I heard? 651 people have made over $1 trillion. I mean, this handful of billionaires.
Right. You add up the billionaires in the U.S. have added $1 trillion grand total to their wealth. Yeah.
To their wealth during the pandemic.
During the pandemic, yeah.
And we have to fight for $2,000, which is $11 a day, if it happens.
And just a quick reminder, folks, if you make $40,000 a year, in order to make $1 trillion, you would need to work for 25 million years.
25 million years.
The more you know.
Well, that's the thing, too. Even people that are, like, doing well, let's say they make, even a millionaire, who, when they hear this, eat the rich and tax them, oh, man, they think they're part of the billionaire ruling class, and they're not. And they don't realize how close they are. Like, it's to make $40,000 a year, you're only $960,000 away from making $40,000 a year. You are $999 million away from becoming a billionaire. So,
right, how different it is. Yeah.
you really should associate. If you make $1 million a year, 500 grand, $1 million, somewhere in there, whatever, you should really be fighting for the working class because you're not that far away from them. I mean, you really aren't. And one big financial wipeout, which some people have had to endure already, guess where you're going to be, you know?
Well, and the number of millionaires in America, just millionaires, I'm not talking billionaires, just millionaires, it's like 500,000 or something, which is, still disgusting, but that's a tiny percentage of the number of people in America. So even if the millionaires were like, yay, anything for the rich, give it all to the rich, even if all of them were, none of them understood the plight of anybody having less than $1 million, it'd still mean 99.5% of America or whatever, maybe more than that, that should be fighting for an actual sustainable society here.
Yeah. And they don't, it's the stimulus bill, there's provisions for defense contractors. Like you said, there's all these countries that we're giving them money for freedom parades or whatever the fuck we're calling war now, you know what I mean? Just like, here's money for democracy cosplay. Oh, that's we're doing a democracy cosplay. But yeah, like $1.3 billion to the Sudan. Like all these insane things. And, again, Trump listed them off, which he knows exactly what's in there. He fights for these things. It's just a publicity stunt to tickle his face, get them going.
Right. He fights for these things. Republicans fight for these things. They're calling it pork, but they're not really. When they say pork, they're not referring to most of the military expenditure, which is the vast majority of that. That's not what they call pork. They're calling like bridges pork, or like having contracts going to a certain state. They're calling that pork, but they're not calling the trillion we spend on military. That's not pork. That's really, we need that.
Yeah, that's just the cost of doing business. That's just the cost of showing these democracy parades all over the world. I mean, that's just we can't get around that. God forbid we stop spending that money and stop blowing up the world. And
the confetti alone.
Oh, the T-shirt cannons.
Oh,
they shoot that just like yay, just say freedom T-shirts. I mean, those cost money. I mean, the silly string. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What's going on? Dressing up as furries or whatever they're doing. I mean, it's the glow sticks. It's amazing.
Yeah. It is truly legit.
Well, folks, if you're just tuning in, please hit the like button. Also, listen, if you're listening to Government Secrets on iTunes or Spotify or something like that, give it a positive review, give it a 5-star review, share this out, because we're growing the show. This is our 22nd episode, I think. So
almost half a year of this.
Wow, it is. We started in the summer. It is almost half a year we've been doing this. How do you feel looking back as the year winds down?